Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
And I'm here.
This is Seeking Me Productions, bring you another movie review.
So we just came back and we was able to watch Fantastic Four: First Steps.
Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has begun. And has this been a very solid start? We'll discuss. But
we'll see how that really goes down the line.
We just got through in a previous video ranking the previous phase 5.
And it was actually kind of bleak when you actually really look at it, but at the end of the dang day, we're here for these kinds of movies in general, but we definitely want to see both, Marvel and DC, Warner Brothers or Disney, succeed when they are putting their best foot forward, or in this case, First Steps.
And also stay tuned to stay off other videos that we have on this channel. We are close to 1,000 subscribers.
We are almost there.
And Fantastic Four in particular, this is the fourth official Hollywood movie, but I tell you, it's 5 times they try to do so.
This didn't have a very murky development issue for as long as we actually understand this particular franchise existing.
It's like, for some reason, Hollywood has had a very troubled time trying to adapt these characters and their stories into live action.
They are pretty larger than life when you look at them compared to other particular heroes. But it's not to say that it can't be done. Is that necessarily the case, though, for this film? And
in the story of the Fantastic Four: First Steps, we are set in an alternate world than the mainline story in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Earth 828. Matter of fact, the reason why the Fantastic Four is being introduced this way is because they wanted somewhat of a clean slate introduce them, and also if they were to have done this, introduce them like in the mainline storyline. A lot of the questions like, where the heck were they this whole time?
Which is a question you can still ask no matter how you look at it, because the way they really center their action and stories around certain particular cities and whatnot, it's his own little trip ups. But what really is going on in this particular film?
This is another new reboot for the Fantastic Four. It skips over the origin story.
Yeah, in this particular one, we are pretty much with the team is already established. They are world famous. They have gone through the trials and tribulation of becoming a fully functioning team, and for the most part, the entire world really does depend upon this particular family.
They're the only known superheroes in their reality, and so they have this isolated situation in which they have to take on the whole world's responsibility. Some of the comic book elements from the Fantastic Four, such as the Future Foundation and the Baxter Building,
as well as certain other enemies and particular situations that the team has gone up against.
Is all are presented in very, very fast, or I'll just quickly highlight it in like a quick scene or a few dialogues. What sets this world apart, definitely from the main Marvel Cinematic Universe, is the retro futuristic vibe, aesthetic that they're going for.
Yeah, something that we definitely want to go in a little bit more detail in when we talk about the production value of this film. But for the story purposes alone, again, we are following this team, the Fantastic Four, this family unit, as they are constantly in this struggle. Well, it's not even a struggle, but pedestal of always being able to be the ones that are the front face for new invention and new experiences that are coming into their planet. However,
the movie kicks off right out the bat in this very first scene. The mere fact that the new introduction of the Fantastic Four is coming. And comic book readers know that there's Reed Richards, Susan Storm. They're already a married couple at the start of the story.
Which is kind of infuriating when you really think about just how significant that particular relationship was in the comics and with the vast majority of Marvel and whole. So to be skipping past that important element is definitely
They want you to buy. So I don't think though it did a good job as really establishing the dynamic in the build up to their relationship and basically the whole world, because it does feel like a whole other movie could have been taking place.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, we understand that, technically, again, this is technically on quote unquote, this is like the 5th film in a franchise that technically has already had multiple outings and iterations. However, it's not like any of those past ones have done them justice or has done it well at all. Mm-hmm. So it's not like in the same boat as yet another comic book movie from another franchise, where the characters have been established, has already had their own iterations, but they've had multiple times to get it right and actually have done them right. So it's okay for them to try and gloss over certain those aspects, but not necessarily for a group like this, because this is, again, a fresh new start. These are individuals who probably have never even heard of these characters, let alone seen them in the way that they're supposed to be presented.
And they're trying to start the film off. Every about to come alive with the new baby and situation. How their whole world is going to revolve around that, and also the movie goes off the main plot again by adapting the Coming of Galactus storyline.
Now, Galactus is a character that, for the vast majority of renditions of trying to bring this family to life, has been a difficult individual to try and adapt, mostly because of the grandeur and the scale, however you want to take it, of how this character is presented in the medium.
Only other time they tried to do this live action was back in the Tim Story Fantastic Four films, where in that movie he was a floating cloud. They
thankfully did go that route. It is a physical character here, and for the most part,
visually they do justice on that regard.
However, with the storyline they're trying to tell, along with another particular character that's introduced here, that being the Silver Surfer, but in this time is understandably changed to the female variant that we see in the comics.
Oh, Shalabah. Oh, they just say there are elements, plot elements that most likely would have benefited if this movie was another hour. There are plot elements that might call to mind other elements from the MCU, mm-hmm. but unfortunately it looks like from the cutting room floor that they decided to chip away to make sure that this movie is as standalone as possible, but those elements are still present in the film to the point that it gets a little bit weird why they're not as explained as thoroughly as they should have.
Yeah, so many of the character plot points, or at least the moments that we should have been able to actually sit down and actually understand what makes these individuals tick, isn't here enough for us to understand who they are. Not to say that we still don't get a good grasp of who Reed Richards is, Susan Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm were the thing.
They're broad strokes.
Exactly. And most of that understanding is really done based off of the heavy lifting, which is provided to us by the actors that's playing these characters.
In a sense, Pedro Pascal's version of Reed Richards, do they get the scientists down? Very heavily so in this movie. They also get from the troubled family man, some of this that hasn't necessarily been explored as much. That's mainly deal with the plot line of the about to have a baby in this movie. But there's a unfortunate takeaway that they have with Reed Richards that is depart from what was presented in the comics. Is that there's not much of a, I'll say, coldness to him. That's usually would have been a lot more better. That would have been understandable understandable what type of actions that they try to have with this character in this mm-hmm. film. And it's just that they shifted away to try to spread out with the other three members. That's case in point with Susan Storms, played by Vanessa Kirby.
Now, I'm not to say that we don't enjoy her presentation of the character in this role. I like almost everybody who's here. However, I will have to say that again, it goes back to that concept of of telling us and show don't tell. There's a lot of stuff that's stated about these characters, but not enough of it is actually presented for us as an audience member to visually understand through this medium.
Like there are plenty of interactions with trying like Reed and Sue, discussing how to deal with a situation that they reference like certain behaviors that mostly from what Sue doesn't like from Reed, that is not necessarily shown in this movie, but is referenced as if it was like prior to the events.
There's a lot of stuff that goes around the concept of how he particularly thinks and views the world, and it just would have been nice to have instances in this film that would have actually presented it from that point of view.
For the other two characters, Joseph Quinn's Johnny Storm, Human Torch.
I feel as though he's such a fun, engaging character. I actually did like some of the elements they actually introduced in here that actually helped him tie even further into this science-focused group. That I feel as though added more depth to the character himself. But for the mass majority of it, I just feel as though, again, we could have had, when it comes to certain ideas or desires that he expressed, it would have been nice to actually showcase that, especially if it would have been introduced for the origins for these characters.
And also Ben Grimm, he's played by Ebon Moss-Bachrach. His character, he feels like a warm hug. Stripped away a lot is the troubleness that was in that troubled, tortured soul that's been already been handled in previous adaptations. He's more on the sidelines on this movie, weirdly so. For past installments, he was like the more emotional hook to the movie. That's actually more shifted to Vanessa Kirby's Invisible Woman's Susan Storm, like understandably so because of the baby situation, the type of decisions that they had, the way of the world situation that they kind of have her going through. The baby, in the comics, he's a big deal.
A huge deal.
He's a big deal. And the script was shifted in a way, like it was reorganized in a way that it kind of would have benefited the movie. I would say had somewhat of another time skip within the context of within the movie itself.
It honestly needed at least 45 more minutes.
Because then you would have explored a lot more to highlight and emphasize why this child
is so integral,
especially to the bigger plot unfold, and that deals with Galactus. And with Galactus, not much, like only basically in two major sequences, unfortunately.
And then there's a whole thing that, I mean, at least from our point of view, at least, and definitely I'm speaking really for myself, the elements that were introduced with this character would make more sense if it was in a way that ties it more focused towards other elements that were introduced, not necessarily in this film, but in the entirety of Marvel, or specific elements that has been come up in certain other films. I can see where that, and it fits so well if it was actually really expressed here, but it isn't, and it just leaves these big plot holes that I feel as though comes up because of that.
Yes, Ralph Ineson, he provides the motion capture voice and the voice work for Galactus, bringing this character to life.
Definitely fits for that character. I feel as though his unique,
baritone voice
and acting style definitely fits a larger character of this stature. However, it's not like he was given that much else to do also.
Yes. And Julia Garner, who portrays this version of Silver Surfer,
as elegant as she possibly can be, and definitely brings a sense of true mystery behind it, but again, just not when I compare her version of the Silver Surfer compared to that what was done in other installments, it doesn't really necessarily measures up in that same unique sense.
They she falls in the category of trying to give this character, this antagonistic character, a more what they call it, sympathetic angle.
But there's also sympathetic angles done with the other one. It's just, again, just not enough.
It's just not enough for
us.
But overall production, we say that this universe is a more of a retro futuristic.
It's definitely stylistically different towards other things that Marvel has done, and it plays heavily towards this film's strengths. I absolutely love those stylistic choices they did for the retro feel aspect and vintage elements they introduced here.
It really adds to a very wholesome coziness
And timeless feature that
I actually
also,
like as much the criticism I do have with this film. Like I do like the world that they presented here.
Mhm.
Matt Shakman, he directed. He was main director for WandaVision. He wasn't the showrunner. That's Jake Schaefer.
and that definitely shows.
Yes, he brought on because in WandaVision, because they were going through TV's past. Of course, but it looks like Kevin Feige. He kept the thought that, oh, well, this is the type of angle that we want to take with Fantastic Four. You can do the retro take on this Fantastic Four. But unfortunately, because he worked mostly on television at this point, and it was like it kind of affected the fact that whoever was also writing the script for this movie clearly doesn't know how to write for a more of a theatrical sense.
There is just not enough action that's going on in this film whatsoever, and we have to stress that there are very few action sequences for an action series.
Two, like I said,
It's
there's only two major sequences
Mhm.
spread very far apart in this little under 2 hour movie.
And that's stylistically given that those particular sequences are, yeah, they're interesting when they actually show. It's not like it's anything else also to write home about. It's not like it hasn't already been done in certain other films and done better.
And unfortunately, this goes on the case that I don't know how much money this movie went into this movie, but the Fantastic Four themselves, they do not show their powers as much.
No, I think only maybe really two individuals in the team themselves actually showcases their abilities to the extent that you would actually want to see coming out of a film like this, and that really goes down to Johnny the Human Torch, and certain elements that was done with Susan Storm, but even in that regard, there's still not enough done to differentiate that sequences compared to other installments.
Ben Grimm, he's motion CGI yet again, but
it's done in a way that actually works and it's
very contextualized, it's grounded. But but unfortunately for Reed Richards, who's Mr. Fantastic, for Stretch is a case of stretching abilities. It's a case that you just have to do it. One Piece on Netflix, the main character of Luffy.
Has similar abilities to
the same abilities.
And so it's like if they're able to do it with what they're doing with their particular budget, why can't y'all do it in this one?
But for most of the part, the world is mostly a practical set design,
And
which
we
is
love
highly
that.
and it's only like extensive. Like a lot of the cases, the VFX is mostly seamless.
Yeah, but it does. Again, I'm going to give a lot of accolades towards the abilities that Susan Storm. I love that sheen, the camera effect that helps us understand her bending of the light. I feel as though the Human Touch has some sequences that works with his ability to generate flames and control them.
The Fantastic Car in particular.
Yeah, that's a sweet ride. I love how they
and the interstellar space travel elements that were visually stunning as well.
But
the highlight of the production, for the most part, is Michael Giacchino's music.
that man just does not miss. He knows how to score a film in production.
We heard this is one of the very first things that we saw heard from this movie back just for a whole year in advance. So you know how busy this composer was working on the movie, and the theme that he does for Galactus and Silver Surfer is worth going to a mission. Probably worth going to his own orchestra. But with that said, what do we feel as though about Phase 6's first installment?
It's okay.
And there are some elements that are worth discussing on a positive light here. I can see how some people will probably draw this towards more favorably. This is, of course, a step above the other installments in a sense.
for this.
For live action characters, but that's been a low bar.
Yeah, it's like you barely even scratched the surface of what you honestly should have been already able to produce.
So there we have. That was our review for the Fantastic Four: First Steps.
Have y'all actually watched this film? And are you planning to go watch it? And if you do, what's your feelings about the Fantastic Four and the state of Marvel in Phase 6 going forward right now?
So please like, share, subscribe, and comment below. What did you feel about Marvel Studios superhero fatigue if this is existing?
Oof.
Yeah, let's discuss.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Adam. And also look for our other social media outlets of Instagram, Threads, and Letterboxd.
See y'all later.
See you.